Hippocrates, the father of medicine, 400 years BC, no mention of diabetes in his writing. So diabetes is a fairly modern disease. Diabetes is a lifestyle.
Allow me to introduce Barbara Oneill, a highly respected naturopath with more than 40 years of experience in natural health. She is committed to discovering effective, holistic methods for managing diseases. Her expertise is especially pertinent when addressing diabetes, a contemporary condition, not mentioned in the medical writings of Hippocrates and other ancient physicians. This omission underscores that diabetes is primarily a lifestyle-related illness, the incidence of which has surged due to modern lifestyle changes. Imagine this, a life full of energy, balance, and health, a life where you feel in control of your body and mind. But for millions of people, that balance is disrupted by a condition known as diabetes, which can feel like an unpredictable storm. But what if I told you that this storm can be calmed? What if I told you that you don't have to accept diabetes as an inevitable part of life? Today, we're going to explore how diabetes develops, what role the pancreas plays, and how the choices we make every day can help prevent or even reverse this condition. I'll be sharing stories, practical tips, and scientific insights that could change the way you look at diabetes forever. Diabetes is no small problem. According to the World Health Organization, more than 420 million people worldwide are living with diabetes, and that number is only growing. In the United States alone, the Centers for Disease Control reports that nearly 37 million Americans have diabetes, with 96 million more classified as pre-diabetic. That's nearly 1 in every 3 Americans at risk. And the costs? It's staggering. The U.S. spends over $327 billion each year managing diabetes and its complications. That's $1 out of every $4 spent on healthcare in America going toward this disease. The financial toll is just one piece of the puzzle. Diabetes also shortens lives, increases the risk of heart disease and stroke, and can lead to complications like blindness, kidney failure, and limb amputations. But what if I told you that this storm can be calmed? What if I told you that you don't have to accept diabetes as an inevitable part of life? A look back in time. As Dr. Barbara Oneill mentioned, in the writings of Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, there was no mention of diabetes. The disease we know today simply didn't exist in the numbers we see now. So what happened? Let's imagine you're sitting down with a doctor who begins by explaining diabetes. Think of diabetes as a metabolic disorder, the doctor says, one that affects how your body handles glucose or blood sugar. They explain that glucose is essential. It's the fuel your cells need to function. But in the case of diabetes, something goes wrong. The body either doesn't produce enough insulin or can't use it properly, causing glucose to remain in the bloodstream. This leads to high blood sugar levels, which can cause a range of health problems. As the conversation continues, the doctor tells you there are 2 primary types of diabetes. Type 1 is usually diagnosed early in life. It's caused when the immune system mistakenly attacks and destroys the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas, leaving the body without enough insulin. On the other hand, type 2, which is far more common, creeps up slowly over time, often due to lifestyle factors. This type happens when the body becomes resistant to insulin or doesn't produce enough to manage blood sugar effectively. Both forms of diabetes share a common thread, disrupted blood sugar control, but their causes and treatments can be quite different. Diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is a relatively modern condition, and it's no coincidence that its rise parallels the shift in how we live, eat, and move. In the past century, our diets have become more processed, our lives more sedentary, and stress levels have skyrocketed. All of these factors combine to throw our body's natural systems out of balance. This imbalance brings us to the story of the pancreas, a Diabetes. The pancreas, the body's blood sugar regulator. The pancreas sits quietly just behind the stomach, yet its role in regulating blood sugar is monumental. It does this by producing two essential hormones, insulin and glucagon. These two work like a team to keep your blood sugar levels in check. When you eat a meal, especially one rich in carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. The pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which helps shuttle that sugar into your cells where it's used as fuel. It's a beautifully orchestrated system until something goes wrong. In our modern world, where highly processed foods dominate our plates, this system is overworked. Blood sugar spikes constantly, and the pancreas has to release more and more insulin to cope. Over time, your cells stop responding to insulin properly. This is called insulin resistance. The pancreas, trying to compensate, pumps out even more insulin, but eventually it can't keep up, and blood sugar remains high. This is how type 2 diabetes begins. A day in the life. A personal story. About 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with prediabetes. My doctor told me I was on the fast track to full-blown diabetes. I was shocked. I thought I was eating fine. Cereal for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for dinner. It didn't seem that bad. But what I didn't realize was that my blood sugar was spiking every time I ate. My body was becoming resistant to insulin, and I was heading down a dangerous path. I didn't want to spend my life on medication. So I started researching. That's when I learned about the glycemic index. As Dr.
Familiar with the glycemic index of food, bananas and potatoes, they're high on the glycemic index, so they get the blood sugar level up relatively high, relatively fast. Not as high and not as fast, so it's more like that. So that's your B. Amylopectin C is found in all your beans. There's your lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, cannellini beans, kidney beans. So what does the C do? The C gives a lovely steady rise, maintenance, lovely steady drop. That's what every cell in the body wants. So let's have a look at it on the glycemic index. Now the glycemic index is a very important index for diabetics because the glycemic index is an index or a reading on how quickly the glucose in that food is released into the blood. So your baseline is 55. So all your berries sit at about 26. Grapefruit, it sits at 25. So for the diabetic, these are good fruits because they're low GI. They're a lovely, slower delivery of fuel. Whereas bananas, they sit up here somewhere. So where does sugar sit? Sugar sits at 59. Where does white bread, white pasta, white cereal, it sits at 69 because of the amylopectin starch in it. What about whole wheat? Whole wheat bread, whole wheat cereal, it sits at 72. How could that be? Well, because the whole wheat isn't refined, it's got more amylopectin A in it. And it's the amylopectin A that gets the blood sugar level up. Now, absolutely, whole wheat bread is superior to white because it's got fibre, it's got your B vitamins. But in regard to the diabetic who's watching their blood glucose levels, they need to eliminate wheat.
Index. As Dr. Barbara Oneill explained, the glycemic index do affect diabetes management. Now let us use this example. The glycemic index. Understanding how food affects you. Mike's story is a common one, but his discovery of the glycemic index was a turning point. The glycemic index, or GI, measures how quickly foods raise blood sugar levels. Foods with a high GI, like white bread, potatoes, and sugary snacks cause rapid spikes in blood sugar. Meanwhile, low GI foods like berries, beans, and whole grains release sugar more slowly, helping to keep blood sugar stable. By making simple swaps, choosing berries over bananas, or opting for legumes instead of pasta, you can dramatically reduce the burden on your pancreas and help prevent insulin resistance. I started paying attention to the glycemic index. I swapped my breakfast cereal for oatmeal with berries, and my lunch became a salad with beans or lentils. It wasn't a huge change, but over time, I noticed a big difference in my energy and my blood sugar levels. Another aspect that impacts diabetes is insulin resistance. Now let's listen to Dr. Barbara Oneill.
When someone develops diabetes, they usually start with insulin resistance. You've heard of insulin resistance? What happens with insulin resistance? The person's, say, on a high carbohydrate diet, a lot of wheat, blood glucose levels are going high, pancreas gets screamed at. You see, high glucose demands high insulin. So when blood glucose levels are high, the pancreas is getting screamed at, quick, insulin, more insulin. So it releases a lot of insulin, too much insulin actually. So what happens now? It goes too low. So down there, the brain says to the pancreas, stop the insulin, release the glucagon. But what does the person also do down there? Has a candy, has a Coke, has a coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar. What does that do? Whoa, up it goes again. Now too high. Stop the glucagon, release the insulin. No, stop the... Can you see what's happening? The pancreas is just wearing out. I'm against child abuse, I'm against animal abuse, and I'm against pancreatic abuse. But many... That'd be like someone kicking their dog, not realising it's hurting the dog. But it's actually not that clear because we can't even see the pancreas. We don't know what's going on in there. And so many people don't realise.
As this renowned doctor briefly explained, let's dive in a bit more. Insulin resistance and its impact. Now, let's talk a bit more about insulin resistance. Imagine your cells are locked doors, and insulin is the key that lets glucose in. When insulin resistance develops, the lock becomes rusty, and the key no longer fits as well. The body compensates by producing more insulin, but eventually the pancreas can't keep up. This is when blood sugar levels rise, leading to prediabetes and, if unchecked, type 2 diabetes. Studies have shown that lifestyle changes can reverse insulin resistance.
And exercise. And the exercise he implemented was the high-intensity interval training. So he'd put his joggers on every morning and he would run up and down the hills. Now after he was with us for 4 weeks, he did 2 weeks program and 2 weeks in the garden. And he came to me at the end of the 3rd week and he said, I want to tell you something. He said, the first week, if I got a blood sugar level low in the middle of the night, I had some candies in my bag, I'd just take a candy. He said it'd get the blood sugar level up, but he said I'd get a terrible headache, but it got my blood sugar level up. He said the 2nd week, I was feeling a bit guilty that I shouldn't be doing that. So he said, if I got a blood sugar level low in the middle of the night, I'd eat an apple. It takes a long time to eat an apple in the middle of the night, doesn't it? 3rd week, he did something else. He said the 3rd week, if he got a blood sugar level low, he'd jump on the floor and do 30 push-ups. So what's he doing there? Do you remember in our last presentation looking at the heart, about the stores that we have in the cell? Remember the 20-step pathway that gives us 2 units of energy? There's the 8-step pathway that gives us 36. Of course, that's the oxygen pathway. But remember the little bunch of grapes, the little glycogen stores, already in your muscle cell. So when Dan did 30 push-ups, it caused a release of these glycogen stores that gave him energy, got the blood sugar level up. He said to me, why didn't anyone tell me about glycogen? I believe glycogen is the diabetic's best kept secret. It's already in there. And if you run out of that, what else have you got? You're fat. That's right. He told me that one morning he got up. I have to give you Australian levels. I don't know if yours are similar. I don't think they are. So the blood sugar levels should sit at about anywhere between 5 and 6. So he got up one morning and his blood glucose levels were 3. So what he did was he had the salt, water, got dressed, had another salt, more water, went for a run, came back, tested his blood glucose levels. They were 9. And he'd had nothing to eat. Where did that come from? Came from the stores, the glycogen stores and the fat stores. If you're running out of glycogen, it's an amazing process. That's why exercise is vital.
Resistance. Regular physical activity and a balanced, low-carbohydrate diet rich in vegetables, healthy fats, and lean proteins are critical. We'll talk more about these strategies in a moment. The power of exercise. Moving for health. Diet is crucial, but there's another powerful tool in managing blood sugar exercise. When you move, your muscles use glucose for energy, which naturally lowers blood sugar levels. And here's the good news. It doesn't have to be complicated. High-intensity interval training, or HIIT, has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond better to insulin. But even simple activities like walking after a meal can help. I used to think I needed to hit the gym for an hour every day to make a difference. But I realized that even a 30-minute walk after a meal helps my blood sugar stay steady. Now it's part of my daily routine. Mike's turning point. Mike, your numbers are looking great. Your blood sugar is back in the normal range, and you've avoided diabetes. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. I'll never forget that day. It felt like I had dodged a bullet. And all I did was make a few simple changes, watching what I ate, paying attention to the glycemic index, and moving more. It wasn't easy at first, but I realized that small, consistent changes were the key. I didn't have to overhaul my entire life, just take it one step at a time. Prevention, the path forward. Mike's story is one of many, and it illustrates a powerful truth. Diabetes isn't a life sentence. By making intentional changes to your diet and incorporating movement into your life, you can prevent or even reverse type 2 diabetes. The power is in your hands. It's a global problem, but there's hope. Together we can fight back against diabetes, one small change at a time. Let's aim for a world where these statistics start to fall, where fewer lives are lost and more are transformed. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this information helpful, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our latest videos about health, wellness, and natural solutions. Together, we can empower ourselves to live healthier, happier lives. Wherever you are, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and see you soon.